Hello! It has been a while. My name is Chris, and I usually talk about movies on this channel, but I have been away for a while. But I am back, and I'm here to talk about some movies that I picked up. Because it is that time again. The Criterion sale at Barnes & Noble is on again. Because for us movie fans, Christmas comes twice a year. I didn't really get much in the last sale, but the last 6 months I have been storing up gift cards, ready for this sale. And I walked away with some stuff. So let's talk about what I got. And this was probably my most excited pickup for the sale, the thing I was looking forward to the most. This is Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And this is truly one of my favorite movies of all time. This is the first film from Tim Burton, starring Paul Reubens as his iconic character, Pee Wee Herman, a totally normal guy who goes on a fantastical journey to retrieve his lost bicycle. This is an extremely funny movie. It's a movie that I loved as a kid, but as an adult, I appreciate this movie on a totally different level. I really appreciate the wry sense of humor that Paul Reubens and Tim Burton bring to this movie. If you're totally unfamiliar with Paul Reubens or with Pee Wee Herman as a character, I would definitely check out the documentary that came out last year about Paul Reubens. He was truly a very funny and very misunderstood but genius entertainer. Now, this is the first time this movie has been released on 4K, and I thought it looked pretty good. Honestly, when I first put the disc in, I thought the image looked a little dark for some reason, but it might have been me. I took the disc out, put it back in again, and I thought it looked fine. And critics online are raving about this Blu-ray. They're saying it looks amazing. I thought it looked really good, but the transfer didn't blow me away or anything. This also comes with a new interview with Tim Burton conducted by one of my heroes, Richard Ayoade. At first I was surprised they got Ayoade to do the interview. I never pictured him a Pee-wee fan. But when you think about it and you look back at the IT crowd, at Maurice Moss, it kind of makes sense. He's kind of a Pee-wee type figure. But it's really good to have Tim Burton in the collection right now. If I were to pick another Tim Burton movie to add to the Criterion collection, I'd probably go with Ed Wood next. I think that would be a great choice. Next, one of the newest releases that I picked up on 4K was 1967's Point Blank. Directed by John Boorman, this is one of many adaptations of the Donald Westlake novels with the main character named Parker. But in the movie, he's known as Walker, and he plays a man who is on a revenge mission to get back at his best friend and wife, who essentially left him for dead after they all committed a heist. But the plot really isn't the main focus here. The film has a very European sensibility, and it was made in the late 60s at a time when American films were really transitioning from old Hollywood to this sort of very European-influenced, new wave-influenced mode that would become the new Hollywood. This film has a very unconventional editing style and has a very evocative look to it, and it's obviously very influenced by French New Wave and Italian New Wave. There's a great commentary on the disc from John Boorman and director Steven Soderbergh, where they talk a lot about the sort of unconventional ways that the film was shot and the importances of color that were used. You can also see a lot of ways that Steven Soderbergh kind of took from John Boorman, especially this film, and adapted it to his movies like The Limey or Out of Sight. It's kind of a hard film to talk about because its strengths are so much about the vibes. It also fits well within that mold of 1960s American films like The Graduate and Bonnie and Clyde. American films that were really pushing the envelope and putting a lot more emphasis on the sort of creator, director, auteur vision. But now director John Boorman is an interesting director to talk about because he's made some classics like this and Deliverance. He's also made films like The Exorcist 2 and Zardoz.
The gun is good.
The gun is good.
The penis is evil.
Some might say those are classics. Now, there is some controversy with this 4K disc. A lot of people were not happy with the way it was looked. They did go back and do a 4K scan for the original negative, and John Boorman did approve it. So there's that. But some people thought that this looked, the color grading was all wrong, that it was too teal. Personally, I thought it looked great. I haven't watched this film in a very long time, so maybe I'm nuts. Maybe I just don't understand these things. But I thought it looked great, and I actually thought that the sort of almost teal look of it, which I only really noticed in a couple of scenes, just kind of like highlighted the mood of the scene. So I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I thought this looked great. But if you are concerned about that, there was a Blu-ray that was released in 2014. If you have that, Maybe you want to do some research. Maybe you want to hang on to it. It's your choice. Next, I picked up Sorcerer, a seminal film bro classic. This is one of the most intense and 70s movies the 1970s ever 1970'd. This was directed by William Friedkin of The Exorcist and The French Connection fame, and it came out in 1977, around the same time, I believe the same month as Star Wars. So, didn't do great. It was kind of beat out at the box office. But this film kind of has a very much the world is hell mentality, which I think really contrasted with Star Wars and the mood that everybody was in at this time. So everybody was looking to go to the movies and just have a lot of fun. Not many people wanted to go and see something this intense and this dire. So if you haven't seen Sorcerer, at the beginning of the film, if you haven't seen Sorcerer, it is about a group of men, 4 men from different areas of the world who, through different circumstances, all end up down on their luck, I should say, in fear for their lives, and end up in this small remote village in South America. A job opportunity presents itself to drive this highly explosive material across a dangerous journey, a dangerous track through South America, and the wrong bump in the road, any kind of issue that goes wrong could end up in these men exploding in a very large explosion. There are sequences in this film that are among the most intense scenes you will see in any movie, particularly a scene involving a bridge. It's savage. This film was kind of forgotten for many years, but has been reevaluated over the last few years and is becoming a seminal classic. I believe this is the first 4K restoration of this film, and I thought it looked great. Again, some people online disagree. They thought that there were teal issues once again with this. I had this on Blu-ray. I thought this looked infinitely better. And I had no problems with it. My favorite bonus feature on this disc is a conversation between filmmaker James Gray and film critic Roger Ebert of our time, Sean Fennessy, where they just talk about Friedkin, talk about the impact of this movie. It's a really nice, really interesting conversation. James Gray does a fantastic William Friedkin impression. There's also a full-length documentary on William Friedkin that is a must-see. William Friedkin was quite the character. Next, I picked up I Know Where I'm Going by my beloved Powell and Pressburger. That is Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger, also known as the Archers, the fantastic filmmaking duo who brought you The Red Shoes, Life and Death of Colonel Blimp, Peeping Tom. This is one of their, I think, lesser-known films, but it's a fantastic movie. It's a romantic comedy set on the shores of Scotland. It is about a woman who is going to marry a wealthy industrialist. She just has to get to him out on this island off the Scottish coast. But the weather is rough, so she is forced to hang out in this charming village on the Scottish coast. And maybe love finds her in another way than what she was expecting. It does. And there's no other way to describe this movie other than charming, cozy. You'll want to watch this maybe when it's storming outside. Get you a blanket, maybe a hot beverage, and enjoy this classic film from 1945 that is basically the 40s version of a Nancy Meyers film. Haven't been able to dive into this yet, but there's an interview with Martin Scorsese, who's like the #1 Powell and Pressburger fan. But next time the wind is howling and the temperature drops, I'm going to throw this on. Next, I picked up Nightmare Alley, Guillermo del Toro's fairly recent. It was just announced that Frankenstein is going into the Criterion collection, so pretty much anything Guillermo del Toro does is going into the collection. I think this is one of his maybe overlooked films, but one of his best. It didn't seem like it made a huge impression when it came out. I guess it was still kind of COVID times, so maybe a lot of people didn't end up getting around to it. It's also a very long and deliberately paced film. Also, this film has no actual fantastical elements in it. It's one of the few Del Toro films where I don't think there's anything supernatural or widely outside of the realms of possibility. It's about a man with a mysterious past played by Bradley Cooper. Early in the film, he joins a traveling circus and then, through a series of interactions, kind of learns the trade of pretending to read people's minds. He pretends to have second sight and uses this for financial benefit, and eventually goes on to even pretend to commune with the dead, or as they call in the movie, the spook show. He's ambitious, but he gets more and more corrupted as the film goes on. Eventually his schemes end up in a very sort of murderous, deceitful plot. Things go too far. They go way too far. This is actually a remake of a 1940s film that was also released through the Criterion Collection, but this film, I think, has a more bleak ending, and by the end it comes off as like one of Del Toro's most, I think, sinister and nihilistic films. There is no redemption in this story, and ends up being, I think, one of his darkest movies. It has an amazing supporting cast: Rooney Mara, Toni Collette, Richard Jenkins, all fantastic. This 4K also comes with a black and white director's extended version. I have not checked that one out yet. I did rewatch this, but I watched the theatrical version, which looked great, so can't wait to revisit this with the black and white version. Lastly, a new recent release I picked up, Ernst Lubitsch's Trouble in Paradise. This is a 1932 sophisticated pre-code comedy. Two thieves who meet in Venice then travel to Paris to work on their next con. This film has a lot of innuendo, a lot of suggestive humor, which for, early 1930s Hollywood is pretty unique. The dialogue is very sharp, it's very witty, and there's a lot of great romantic chemistry and just sex appeal going on in this movie. I think if you're not familiar with 1930s early pre-code Hollywood, this might surprise you. And if you're not familiar with director Ernst Lubitsch, he's made a lot of great films from the 30s and 40s. He has a really good tongue-in-cheek sense of humor, and there's just a lot of great dialogue in this film. This is not only the first time it's been released on 4K, but I believe the first time it's released on Blu-ray. So if you find yourself interested in this period of Hollywood, this pre-code era, where things tend to be a lot, sexier, honestly a lot funnier with the dialogue, I would definitely check this out. So that's all I got for now. I don't think my bank account will allow me to get any more Criterions during the sale, but only time will tell. There are definitely still movies I want to pick up, definitely still movies that are on my wish list, so we'll just see what the next sale allows. So are you checking out the Barnes & Noble Criterion sale, and what are you going to pick up? Let me know. And I will catch you next time, hopefully sooner than the last time, but we'll see.
Be sure and tell them Large Marge sent ya.